After firmly refusing the arranged marriage that her stepfather and Bin had forced upon her, Uyen realized she had no other choice but to flee. That night, amid the thick darkness, the footsteps and calls of her stepfather and son echoed throughout the village as they hunted for her. Uyen ran as if she had nothing left to lose, and when dawn broke, a completely new and challenging day began for her. With no money and nowhere to go, Uyen wandered to the market. Having followed her mother to the market for years, she never imagined she would one day have to live off the things people threw away. But now, in order to survive, she bent down to pick up every empty can and bottle discarded in the corner of the market. She slipped past the stalls that were still asleep, rummaged through the trash bags on the sidewalk, carefully selecting the bottles that could still be sold. Despite the filth and stench, she remained patient. Perhaps never before in her life had she known the cruelty of life as she did now. She didn't even have a pair of decent sandals. She picked up a pair of torn sandals lying abandoned in a pile of trash to put on her feet. They were cold and painful, but at least they kept her feet covered. The long road ahead seemed to offer no way back for her. Her former home, where her mother was no longer a place she could return to. Just when she felt most desperate, at the end of the road, she suddenly heard the familiar sound of a middle-aged man's scrap metal collection truck. Uyen hurriedly grabbed her bag of cans and ran after him, her voice breathless. Sir, please buy these from me." The man looked at the thin girl, her clothes stained, and couldn't help but feel pity. He weighed the cans and gave Uyen a few coins. To Uyen, it was like a small fortune. She clutched the money tightly in her hand, joy evident on her young face, still lost in the flow of life. In that moment, she forgot that she no longer had a home to return to. But the joy was short-lived. Suddenly, it started to rain. The drops fell coldly. Uyen stopped in the middle of the empty street, the rainwater mixing with tears that no one could see. The image of her mother appeared in her mind, making her heart ache so much she could hardly breathe. She wondered, is Mom worried about me right now? Does she know I'm wandering in the rain with nowhere to go? Uyen hugged her bag to her chest, standing silently in the gray rain, her heart heavy as if the whole sky was about to collapse. The rain grew heavier by the minute, the wind howling so fiercely that even the trees lining the road swayed violently. Uyen huddled, clutching her bag tightly to her chest. She hurried into a small makeshift hut by the roadside, hoping it would provide enough shelter from the rain and wind to offer her a little warmth. But just as she curled up in the corner, a man suddenly appeared. It was the supervisor of the work area, his face cold, a stick in his hand pointing straight at her. "No shelter here! Get out now!" "Sir, I just want a shelter for a moment. The rain is too heavy," Uyen begged, trembling. But despite the girl's frail and wet appearance, he insisted on chasing her away because there had been many thefts in this area recently. Uyen had nothing more to say, only silently walking under the white curtain of rain, her heart heavy, as if it were about to break. She wandered through the streets, her torn sandals becoming looser and looser. When her feet were almost numb, a half-finished bridge construction site appeared before her. Like grabbing onto a last lifeline, Uyen hurriedly slipped under the bridge, where the tall concrete pillars provided some shelter from the rain and wind. The corner of the bridge was damp, but at least drier than outside. Next to it was a pile of discarded construction tarps. Uyen picked them up, neatly folded them into a mat, then lay down, trying to close her eyes. That night, she slept fitfully, treating the old tarps as the only bed she had in her life. She hoped that after a tiring day, sleep would help her forget all her worries. And so a new day began. A luxury car pulled up to the construction site. Inside was a young man dressed elegantly, followed by his personal driver. They quickly discussed the project's progress. The man was the director of the bridge construction company, a man known for his strictness and meticulousness. As the car drove past the unfinished bridge section, he furrowed his brow, sensing something was wrong. "Turn back. I want to see it for myself." The driver immediately turned the wheel. The director called the engineer in charge, demanding his immediate presence to explain the project's delay. Upon arrival, the scene before him made him even more uncomfortable. The machinery was idle, and there were no workers in sight. Only the engineer had just arrived on his motorcycle, his face tense. "Get in the car. I need to see this key bridge immediately," the director said sternly. Without hesitation, the engineer immediately drove the director deep into the construction site. He went through every corner, clearly pointing out every mistake, every piece of concrete that was left unfinished and unsupervised. His voice was sharp and cold, full of pressure. Meanwhile, Uyen sat under the bridge, listening to the voices of strangers echoing down from above. The haunting fear of being hunted down by her stepfather and his son came flooding back, leaving her dazed and terrified. She quickly crawled to the edge of the bridge, splashing rainwater on her face to stay alert, trying to reassure herself that they were just construction workers. On the bridge, the director's phone rang. He pulled his phone out of his pocket, but didn't notice that his leather wallet had fallen out of his jacket, slid down the edge of the bridge, and fallen straight under the bridge, right near where Uyen was standing. After a tense phone call, the director quickly left with the engineer, not forgetting to remind him, "I want clear progress today. Work carefully." The sound of the car gradually faded, leaving a quiet space under the bridge. Uyen gently raised her head and saw something lying on the ground. She picked it up, a luxurious wallet, soaked with rainwater but still containing all the documents. Inside the wallet were business cards, the company address, and a large sum of money for someone like her who just picked up cans. Uyen panicked, her heart pounding. She rushed outside, hoping to catch up with the man. But the luxury car had already disappeared from the road. She stood, rooted to the spot for a long time, clutching the wallet to her chest. Uyen understood. This money could help her live for a month, maybe even longer. But it wasn't hers, and the person who dropped it surely needed it. She opened the wallet to check the information one more time, then closed it carefully, as if holding a precious object. Uyen decided she had to find a way to return it to its owner. Even though her life was currently plunged into darkness, there was still a little light in her heart called kindness. From the day she stepped outside, she no longer had a family to protect her, no home to return to. Uyen once again left the bridge, continuing her journey with no destination. She hoped that as long as she could find a job, no matter how hard it was, she would accept it, as long as it was enough to get by. It was better than going back to have her stepfather force her into marriage, repeating her mother's. Walking along the dirt road, she came to a large fish farm on the riverbank. Seeing that Uyen was thin but gentle, the owner of the fish farm agreed to give her a temporary job. "This work is very hard. Can you do it? It's usually only for men. Think carefully before you decide." Uyen simply nodded and replied softly, "Yes, I can do it, ma'am. I'll try my best." Before Uyen could celebrate, she had to immediately get to work, carrying large buckets of feed, walking along the endless rows of fish cages. The fish farm was too large, the fish too numerous, leaving her almost no time to rest. Uyen was exhausted and hungry, her hands trembling, her feet covered in dust. The sun rose high, then set, and the river breeze turned bitterly cold. Uyen kept working, laboring continuously, as if racing against her own exhaustion. By the time evening fell, she was so exhausted she collapsed onto the small wooden table, falling asleep without realizing it. But before she could receive any pay, Uyen was roused by the owner's loud shout. "What kind of work ethic is this? You fall asleep while working. I don't need someone like you. Get out now." Uyen was stunned. She couldn't understand what she had done wrong. But knowing that arguing would be useless, she could only silently bow her head and walk out of the camp empty-handed. She gradually understood. Without her mother's protection, life became a million times harder. She only dreamed of the simple meals she used to have with her mother, which now seemed so far away. On the other side, the director had just returned and hadn't even made it to his office when he suddenly turned pale upon realizing his wallet was gone. "Go back to the construction site immediately," he said urgently. The luxury car immediately sped back to the construction site. The director searched almost the entire site, squeezing through every path, shining a light into every puddle of mud, but still couldn't find the wallet. His face was tense with worry. The wallet contained important documents, bank cards, personal files, all related to his work and the project he was in charge of. Losing it was not only troublesome, but also had a major impact. Finally, he stood motionless at the bridge railing, sighed, and walked away sadly, like someone who had lost an important part of themselves. Just then, in the distance, Uyen returned to the old road, clutching the wallet in her hand. When she saw the director's silhouette, she recognized him immediately. That figure, that face, that car. It was probably the person who had dropped the wallet. She immediately ran over and looked at his face, which matched the photo on her ID, and was certain that he was the owner of the wallet. So she shyly handed him the wallet with both hands. "Sir, here, this is your wallet. Please check to see if anything is missing." The director paused for a few seconds when he received the wallet, his face clearly showing joy as he opened it to check. Everything was intact. His eyes were filled with surprise and gratitude. Thank you so much. Let me give you some money. If I don't get it back, I'll be in a lot of trouble." Before he could finish his sentence, Uyen shook her head. "No need, sir. I'm just returning what belongs to you. I'm leaving now," she said, then turned and walked away, her small but strangely upright figure. The director hurriedly called after her. "Wait, give me your contact information. I just want to thank you." But Uyen just shook her head gently, smiling sadly. "No need, sir. Your thanks. That's enough." With that, she left, leaving behind the regretful gaze of a man who was rarely moved by anything. With empty hands and weary feet, Uyen wandered along the bumpy dirt road. Her stomach growled with hunger, her eyes heavy with fatigue, but she refused to give in. Suddenly, the aroma of fragrant pho broth wafted through the air, causing her to pause. A pho noodle shop by the roadside, bustling with passers-by. The shop owner was busily serving noodles, arranging meat, and ladling out steaming broth. Uyen took a deep breath. Perhaps this would be a new hope. She stepped closer, her voice soft but sincere. "Excuse me, ma'am, the shop is so busy. If possible, could you let me work here for a while? I can do everything." The owner looked up. Seeing the thin, gentle girl with her pitifully earnest eyes, she nodded slightly. "Yes, come work. The shop is very busy." Joy crept into Uyen's eyes, a joy she hadn't felt in a long time. She quickly rolled up her sleeves, tied her messy hair neatly, and began helping the owner. She carefully carried each bowl of steaming hot noodles, never forgetting to smile at the customers, despite her tired face. Then she wiped the tables, cleared the chairs, and washed each bowl and pair of chopsticks. Uyen worked tirelessly. Sweat mingled with the heat of the restaurant. But strangely, her heart felt light, unlike the times she had been scolded while working before. When the last customers left, Uyen tidied up, neatly stacking the bowls and chopsticks into piles. The owner looked at the small, diligent girl and sighed softly. "You did very well. Few people are like you." She then opened the cupboard, took out some loose change, and placed it in Uyen's hand. "Here, your pay for today. It's not much, but it's my heartfelt gratitude." Uyen bowed her head and clutched the money tightly. To others, it might have been just a few small coins, but to her, it was a whole world of hope. As she stepped out of the restaurant, the evening breeze blew through her sweat-dampened hair, and Uyen's face lit up with a smile, a rare smile after a string of dark days. At least, today she had supported herself with her own hands. And deep down, Uyen believed that life, though filled with storms, still held warm moments to keep her grounded. In an instant, night had fallen. The high-pressure lamps along the road cast a yellow glow onto the thick black water beneath the bridge. In the luxury car returning from a late work trip, the director sat silently, his mind still preoccupied with the image of the young girl who had returned his wallet that morning. Both unfamiliar and puzzling to him. Suddenly the driver said casually, "Oh, right. I heard from some workers that a homeless girl has been appearing around the construction site lately. Apparently, she's been staying under that bridge." The director froze. A girl? Around the construction site? Homeless? The description strangely matched Uyen's image. "Turn back to the construction site," he said quickly, his voice slightly urgent. The car immediately turned around. The closer they got, the more strangely nervous he felt. He wasn't sure if it was because of worry or some other reason he couldn't quite name. When the car stopped, the headlights shone directly down onto the empty space under the bridge. Uyen, who was sitting huddled under an old tarp, jumped. The sudden light and the sound of a strange car in the middle of the night made her face pale. The haunting memory of being hunted by her stepfather and stepbrother came rushing back like a cold wind. Without hesitation, she jumped up and ran under the bridge, finding a dark corner to curl up in, her arms tightly wrapped around her bag of old clothes. She had only one thought in her head: run! I have to run away from danger. But a warm, deep voice rang out, not at all scary. "It's me. Don't be afraid. I'm the one you returned the wallet to this morning." Uyen froze. In the dim light from the car headlights, she recognized him as the director, a polite, stern man, but not at all malicious. He gently bent down to her eye level. "I just want to know, why are you sleeping here?" Uyen lowered her head. She wanted to hide it, but when faced with his sincere gaze, tears naturally welled up. She recounted in a choked voice: the forced marriage, her stepfather's pursuit, wandering from place to place, and finally taking refuge under the bridge because she had nowhere else to go. The director was silent. Gone was the stern demeanor he had shown when reprimanding the engineer earlier that morning. All he saw before him was a pitiful girl, strong but driven to the brink by life. After a long moment, he said softly, "You can't stay here, it's too dangerous." "But I have nowhere else to go," Uyen whispered. The director pondered, then continued, "I have a friend who has a small, empty house nearby. You can stay there for a few days. Consider it my way of thanking you for returning the wallet." Uyen looked up at him. In her eyes, there was hesitation and fear, but also a hint of trust. Not everyone would reach out to someone like her in the middle of a stormy night like this. Sensing the sincerity in his voice and eyes, Uyen nodded slightly. "Yes, if it's okay, thank you so much. But I feel like it would be a bother for you." He smiled softly, then stood up and held out his hand to her. "You're a very kind person. Just think of it as us helping each other out. You helped me this morning, and now I'm helping you. Don't worry about it. Let's go. I'll take you there right away." Uyen timidly placed her hand in his warm palm. The two of them got into the car. The door closed, leaving behind the dark underpass, once a temporary shelter for a girl crushed by life, and also the place where a new turning point in Uyen's life began.